Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning.
A podcast where we share with you great insights about everything family from over 30 years of parenting 7 kids and over a decade of equipping parents through our Crazy Cool Family ministry.
So let us inspire and equip you to build your best family.
Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast. Don and Suzanne, married people here. We're going to talk about marriage today.
Yeah, we're in February, the month of love. You
Yes.
have to talk about your marriage relationship in the month of February.
So happy Valentine's Day, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Even if you're listening to this podcast months later, happy Valentine's Day anyway. Just go.
Every day should be Valentine's
Just assume
Day.
it's Valentine's Day and go out on a date with your spouse. And so we're going to, a lot of just scatter shooting.
We're going to talk about the I like scatter shooting, but the biggest, baddest, and best parts of marriage.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff.
We're going to get real.
So it's not really, we don't really have like some one agenda today. It's going to be a lot of different stuff. And
Points 1, 2, 3.
We've been married for 33 years. We're going 33 and a half right now. Anniversary's in November. So we've been through a lot with marriage and 7 kids and all the different things that happen. And so, but our marriage is, I would say, is better right now than it's ever been.
Oh, for sure.
And so
the concept the best is yet to come. I think is definitely can be applied to our marriage now.
Yep.
And I would say, to talk about the baddest real part of it, I would say that our marriage relationship was our hardest relationship most of the seasons. And I know for me, the reason why was because I couldn't boss you around at the level I could boss the children around.
It's true. It's true. I'm an adult.
You wouldn't obey.
Yes. And I wouldn't
conform.
Yes. I wouldn't, you didn't have as much influence. Although we have both had influence in each other's lives.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's huge. I think that's part of being married. And I think that the thought that comes to mind right now is to think about that someone somewhere said that you're married, you basically have several marriages, 4, 5, 6 marriages within one marriage. And so you've got
I've only had one.
No, those early marriages, those early years.
Talking about one person.
Exactly. You're married to one person, but with that one person, you've got a bunch of different marriages because you've got that young and trying to figure it out. And then you've got that we think we have it figured out. And and so we're working really hard to change each other into each other so that we can like them better. And then you've got that, maybe starting to be the empty nester. And then you've got the marriage relationship where you're actually starting to really appreciate and value each other and the differences that are there. And so to me, I look over all of our different marriages, if you will, married to each other. And it has been quite the progression.
Although, and some people would say, and we've been fortunate that we have continued to pursue it and it's gotten better. For some people, we know that's not the case. That they've gotten more and more bitter. Their different marriages maybe are deteriorating.
Right, like they stopped the initial marriage and went to find a different one, and they're working on that one.
And if that's you, then we want to give you hope because we've been in those seasons. We've never been at a point where it's like we're heading for divorce, but we've definitely had seasons where we really didn't like each other.
Yeah, and I would say that because life was just really too complicated to get a divorce for us. When you have 7 children and they're all playing sports, like we were desperate, for that marriage.
Tough it out. Well, but also we've never really, there's been definitely some things where we've gotten really angry with each other. But overall, I would say when our marriage got bad or, was on the downward side, it was more like we didn't want to be around each other. We didn't really like each other. We weren't. It wasn't a lot that we were really mean to each other, or we were neither one of us.
We didn't get in yelling, knockdown, dragouts, and all that.
We did
stuff.
In the first part of our marriage. We definitely got into some good fights.
Yeah, that's true. But, and I can think of a few. It's definitely one of the worst things that I've ever done was. I remember we were taking Michael to college, so it was 6 years ago. So it's pretty late, in our marriage, a couple decades in. And if you want to give me an excuse, I was fasting, so my blood sugar was really low. But reality is, you and I were having a conversation. I don't even remember what it was about, but I was feeling like I was just feeling rejected, unseen, you know, all the things. And I just remember screaming, "I hate you," and throwing my water bottle at the windshield. I'm shocked that it didn't break. Climbing in the back seat and curling up in a ball and taking a nap, because that's what I do. I have to withdraw to be able to handle it. Yes. And I just remember you were so sweet to me. I mean, you were so sweet to me. I remember the rest of the evening you didn't I mean, I'm sure you took offense, but I just remember the rest of the evening you being really sweet. And then once I'd calmed down and we got on the other side of it, you had just said, "Do you really hate me?" Like, let's get back to the reality of that.
Yeah, no doubt. It was painful.
But knowing that I was saying that out of, you know, all of my stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack today as we talk about marriage. I really do. You know, as you can see, we are kind of bouncing around a little bit. But yeah, first of all, just like, what do you feel like, Suzanne, marriage really is? What does God say about marriage? What is your, you know, we talk a lot about having values for marriage and going towards each other. What would you say is your value of marriage, and where do you want us to go in marriage? What do you want us to do in marriage?
Well, I mean, so you asked two different things: what's God, and then what's me. And so, I mean, God says
I hope that two line up.
Yeah, well, yeah, the two shall become one. And so unity, you know, male and female, he created them, and he created it's all in Genesis is the birth of marriage, if you will, with the creation of Eve for Adam. Adam needed a helper. And so out of Adam, Eve was created. And so I think that's where that first comes from. And so that's where I would get my vision and the value of marriage is, you know, as the wife, I'm created to be your helper. I'm to come along beside you and help you. And and ideally encourage you and support you and help you be the best that you can be. And then the same is for you. I respect you. And then you in turn love me, and you take care of me, and you see me, and you notice me, and you encourage me, you know, back. And so, so I get, like you said, it's intertwined. What God says and how I played marriage. Now, I can say that when I was a little girl, I didn't really understand marriage. And so when I played Barbies, the daddy would get in the car and go to work, and he would be gone all day. And so I never played marriage with the mom and the dad. I never knew what to do with the daddy, never knew what to do in that role of marriage, but I played the mommy role all day long.
And so you knew what to do there.
And so I practiced that for decades, or for at least the first decade, till, you know. And so I do remember even our first year of marriage kind of being a little bit clueless, not really having that vision that I just talked about, and not fully understanding what God's ideal for marriage is.
Well, we were talking about, like, what's the worst thing that we've done to each other. You were talking about, I hate you, that car ride. I think about, like, the first decade. I always look at marriage like we do parenting. We talk a lot about our marriage and parenting in decades. You know, what happened the first decade and the second decade, and we're on our fourth right now. And I remember the first decade, I thought I had the whole Christian life thing better down more than you, had parenting down more than you. It sounds so arrogant now, but it's...
Well, just hysterical, because I'd been a parent for 2 years before I'd even met you.
Yeah, I just felt like it was kind of an arrogant thing of being able to say, you know, if you would just listen to me, then I could probably help you with the spiritual life thing. You know, I study the scripture a lot. You know, I'm doing all this stuff, and if you, you know, and if you know, you're not quite as organized, or you know, and
all true. Valid.
But what I learned over that first decade is God showed me, one, the differences between men and women, and just how amazing, and two, how amazing you in particular were as a woman and as a mom, and relationally, and all the things that I wasn't as effective at. And it really made me so that, you know, I feel like, and I feel like you went through some of the same things, that some of the things that we talk about a lot in marriage. The first decade, we tried to change each other into each other. Mm-hmm. That and it was like, oh wow, this is a really unique person, and I need to appreciate and learn from her more so than try to change her into something else. And I think so the thing I did bad really was it really damaged your self-esteem as I was trying to help you become more like me.
Yeah.
But, in your mind, you were like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. I want your approval. I'm not getting it. And so it was pretty, I think it set the stage for a lot of difficulties in liking each other over many, many years.
And we're big advocates of being safe. I think that we spent several decades not being safe with each other, because if you were rejecting me in your own way, but I was feeling it at a much higher level of rejection. And so I would turn around and reject you or be cold or manipulate you or do the things that we women do, if you will, freeze you out. In all the things, or when you would say something, I would not be honoring or not be respectful and make, because I felt dumb in your eyes, I wanted you to feel dumb too. And so that's how I think I would respond to you. And so I do think that we spent a lot of our time together in the younger years treating each other almost like second-rate citizens, if you will, comparing each other to ourselves.
So what do you think? I can answer this for me, but I'm going to ask you first, and then I'll pipe in. But what do you think changed it for you? What do you think changed the trajectory of the marriage, where we weren't doing that as much anymore? We started doing things differently, and kind of, what was some of the keys for you there?
Well, you changed and I changed. I think we started seeing each other. I started seeing there's certain qualities that you had that initially I was attracted to, like you were an extrovert and you loved to talk, and so I was initially very attracted to those, and then which is very much the norm. Then those are the things I actually started hating about you. Shut up, stop talking. You're talking all the time, and oh my goodness, you're so demanding. Let me have 27 children so that you won't. You've got so much energy. And anyway, and so, but I think that now coming back around full circle again, realizing that extrovertness is very good for me. It's very good, because if not, I would just kind of curl up in my little introvert self and be alone all the time. Or, I love it that you talk, because sometimes I don't even have to. And so that's one of the things, is just seeing each other differently, and then appreciating, like I appreciate you like I've never appreciated you before. And to be honest with you, the kids have even helped me with that. Dad, Mom, don't you see how hard he works, and how much he does behind the scenes, and how much he invests in our family, and just even being aware of you and your different qualities. I think that was a huge change in, it's perspective. Yeah,
like I think the same for me, in that you're a more particular person than I am, for example. That's true.
I have multiple preferences, and that is a quality that Dawn does not have, which is very nice, because it allows me to have them.
Yeah, which really just but sometimes like as we do projects together or things like that, I could say, man, it's going to take a long time to do this, because we got to work through a lot of things. We got to work through a lot of preferences. We got to work through a lot of ideas, and also, like, you're like, I want to decide and move on, and to you, like, the world's always open, and there's always something,
options.
Yeah, there's always, we can always change them, and we're never, and it feels like we're never really settled. We settled that. No, not really, we didn't. And so
who settled it?
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
When? Why?
And so, but I've again learned to work with that and appreciate it, instead of, and seeing that, wow, we really do come to a better product together.
Yes.
And then and so often, like when we would work together, I think it's come a long way in that we used to really get annoyed with each other when we would have to work together, because I didn't feel like I could say my opinion, because it would hurt your feelings,
right?
And you didn't feel like my opinions would then tell you that I didn't like your work.
Right.
And neither were really true, but it was an impression. And I think so often in marriage, if you could learn from that, parents, so often we're giving out impressions that are not really the intent. And if you can start to dig back into those, and we started to dig back in those and learn more how to talk to each other in a way that would communicate. And I think that's one big thing that started happening. I don't know what decade it happened. Maybe probably the start of the third decade, as we started to really try to learn each other's language. And I think that was really important. Like, we see the world differently, and we speak into the world differently. And so we started trying to connect in that, even like the things like the Enneagrams and stuff like that. We started trying to see, different personality tests and things, because we were determined we could see the end of the road of the kids at some point. We're about to release our last one from high school. And, we said, but gosh, we better figure this out. We better figure out how to like each other. We got a long time together.
Yeah, it's just going to be the two of us. And so, you said a couple of things that, going back to those early years that made me think of, there was a competition that we had with each other that was so anytime we had any kind of discussion, all of a sudden it's like we were on two different sides of the line and we were facing off. And so then that would turn into an argument. Even if it was a minor situation, if we're working together, we're trying to get the same project done, but all of a sudden it became a competitive argument.
Well, and what's wild is that as a man and my personality, I didn't feel like it was an argument. I felt like we were just debating the topic.
Yeah.
But to you, it felt like an argument more so than me. And so I would start saying things, and all of a sudden you're getting like arguing with me, and I'm like, where's that coming from? Because
do you remember me saying once, okay, communication 101, you affirm the person and their attitude and their idea. You say, well, that's a good idea, but what if we do this, versus just coming back at them, And I just remember thinking that, like you said, our communication skills with each other were not cohesive. I remember telling people for sure, but even us, that, our baggage doesn't get along. My insecurities and your
but even
achieving.
But out of that, one of the things I learned is that I did need to affirm, that I did need to start with, I was just I was wanting to be efficient. And so I was saying, hey, that, I almost like went through, hey, yes, a lot of that's good, but here's where we need to focus on. And instead I started to think, you know what? I need to affirm that first, and then we can talk about things. And it really helped to, I did need to change. And because when I changed, I was able to communicate in your language better. And so then, and really it was the best language in so many ways. And so it spoke to your heart.
Yeah. And so just to speak to you, marriages out there, I would say that was one of the greatest, best things that we did for our marriage, was to change our perspective, to accept each other, but to realize, this isn't working. The way I'm talking to her, it works that way with all my business people, but it doesn't work with her. And so what can I do differently? And the same thing for, Don is an achiever. And there was certain things that I would say, the way that I would say them, that would set him off, that he would feel like a failure, deep down. And I was like, okay, I can't say it that way. I don't need to say it that way. I need to learn the way to say it so that he hears it, because I don't think he's a failure, but the way I'm saying it is coming across as that. And so put that in your, if your marriage is in a tough spot right now, what do you need to do to change? Who was the guy that wrote the book, Layman, who said, how to have a new husband by Friday? And
Layman.
Layman, yeah. And it's all for the wife. It's all about you changing, wife, and that's how you can have a new husband by Friday. And so I think
that's probably, again, probably in the last 10 or 15 years, one of the things that we have learned, and we're starting to teach it a lot more right now when we do marriage conferences and things, about to do it in a couple weeks, is that the best thing you can do to help your marriage is to become the best version of yourself. Mm-hmm. That so often we just think, and I know I've thought this, if Suzanne would just do this, man, our marriage would be so much better.
I remember Don would say something, and I would say, "If you would just say it like this."
Yes, and it's made me mad.
And he's like, "I will never say it like that.
Well,
I don't think like that. I would never.
Oh
I don't. Even if I read it in a book, I'm going to skip over it. You know."
No, but what bugged me about it was, and this happened over and over again, was I would say, this bothers me. And she would say, well, if you just thought differently about it and thought differently about me, then it wouldn't bother you anymore. I'm just like, oh,
and
so it's all...
Well, that is true.
I was like, you're not supposed to tell me that. You're supposed to go, okay, thank you for telling me this. I want to consider that in my own life. And instead...
If you would just change, everything would be so much better.
And it was like, oh, so it's all about me. I get it. And so... But it really is true that it was a huge, I think there's, what I would say is, there's been times that we've had a great marriage, great friendship. And like I said, when we go down, and it's definitely been seasons, like, maybe years where we have said, man, we don't really get mad at each other, but we just kind of avoid each other. And we've definitely had seasons. But when that started to change was when we really just started to decide to invest in each other. Mm-hmm. And that was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things that we invested in, and it was all Don's ideas. We actually got marriage coaches, and mm-hmm. they really helped us get on the same page. There was, I would say we did the hard work for a year, and really had to pursue each other and break a lot of habits that we had created in those first couple decades, almost survival mechanisms or techniques, if you will, where we were withdrawing from each other because neither of us wanted to hurt each other. We didn't want to cause each other pain. And so our go-to method was to just withdraw. Well, I can't remember where I read it, but it said that if you're fighting, that's good. But if you're not fighting, that's bad.
And actually, I remember, I think there's a lot of Christian men that think this. And so track with me here, men, for a minute, and maybe women too. I think we're told in church, and John Eldredge, one of my favorite authors, says, the goal of church is to make you into a nice guy. Mm. And so he's like, he's not saying that, with love in his heart. He's saying that that's not a good thing, because I felt like that when Suzanne would get mad or when she would not be happy with life or whatever, that I would be accommodating and I would just kind of smooth it out, and I wouldn't get into the fight. I wouldn't get into the conflict. I wouldn't maybe even stand up for myself, because I thought that was being servant-hearted, and I thought that was a good thing. But in reality, again, languages, she took it as, I don't care. And she took it as, I'm not, it's not a big deal to me, when really I was trying to be accommodating and be a servant, quote unquote. What I learned is, and I didn't know if I was healthy enough. When I did, sometimes it resulted in a fight, and I'm like, well, that didn't work.
Well, and then it would go round and round and round, and we wouldn't resolve it. And so I love that you said healthy enough, because I agree that I think both of us were in maybe an unhealthy place at different seasons for sure in our marriage, and to have any kind of conflict was not productive.
But there was a time, several years ago. It wasn't in year 10. It was like in year 20 something, that I said, I felt like the Lord said, you're get in the game. Yeah. Get in the game and stop backing away. And it's going to be messy, but I'll be there for you. And I want you to go in and start to, I remember reading Philippians 2, and it says that, that Christ, it says, in all your relationships, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, even though he was God, did not consider equality with God as something to be obtained, but instead he became a humble servant and became obedient to the point of death. And it's like, and it says, what if you went to the cross in your marriage and I'm like, well, God, certainly, well, what's she going to do? Right. And he's like, next question. I'm not going to tell you that. I want to see.
It doesn't matter. It's
me and you going into battle, and quit being a wimp and go in and fight a little bit in the right way, and fight for your marriage, so to speak. And, at first it was messy, but over time, I think what I learned is that a lot of times men withdraw, or maybe women withdraw, but particularly when men withdraw, women think they don't respect them. And so then when we go in and start to engage with it, if we do it in a healthy way, they also don't respect them if they're going to yell and scream and do all those things. But I went in and said, no, Suzanne, hey, you can act like that if you want to, but we still need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And we started to do that more, and it really made you think differently about me.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I was able to respect you, and I had something to relate to. I mean, we had gotten going back to that little season where God intervened. Basically, we had gotten to where we were pretty much on two islands, and we were going through the motions, but of marriage, all the things, but we definitely weren't connected. And so when God said, you need to connect with her, whether she connects or not, I'm doing a work in her. And I think it was a long time that you did not get any accolades from me when it came to connecting. I had numbed out so much because I am highly relational, and I remember believing the lie. And so, wives out there, if you're believing the lie, this is as good as it gets. And we're not going to connect at the soul level, and he's never going to understand me, and he's not going to accept me. So I just need to just suck it up and deal with it. And those were all lies from the enemy that were not true at all. I mean, God is doing a work in our marriage and in your marriage too. And so he's there, he's working, he's doing it. He's trying to soften our hardened hearts.
So, what's the best thing that I do for you? That, let's talk some practicality for a minute. What's the best thing and that I do for you that makes you feel loved?
Okay, so I have to go back to that dark period in our marriage, if you will. And I go back, and so what Don did to pursue me at the highest level possible for me was to massage me. And so every night he would rub my shoulders, and my shoulders that's where I carry all of my stress, rock hard. My kids laugh about it. Oh my gosh, Mom, your shoulders are so hard. And so every night I want to say a year. I don't really know exactly how long.
20 years.
Yeah. No, you didn't in the beginning. I was just like, you didn't. But definitely the last, several years. But that's what thawed me, if you will. I saw where that had thawed me.
That one thing,
and that you changed, and that you had a better perspective, and you loved me. But massaging. Yeah, I'm not even physical touch, but my muscles are just so tight, and I just absolutely loved it.
I think that
I would say, oh, you're ministering to me. You're ministering to me.
So, and then what you did for me, or you've done for me, I should say, or doing for me, is you just started to like me.
Yeah.
I think that there was the one of the reasons I think I would withdraw is I didn't feel liked.
Oh, and I remember early on in our marriage, you would say, "Do you like me?" Because I was just giving off this air that I didn't like you. But really, I was just reflecting that I didn't feel liked.
What I did didn't line up with your preferences.
Oh,
or
for
whatever,
sure.
And we really did. We liked each other. We just didn't show it well. And
too.
And so, but I think that
we're not,
and really,
we're not physical touch. We're not really words of encouragement.
And so I think that over the last several years that you've kind of decided that, hey, this guy's, he's pretty likable after all. And really, as a guy, and ladies, maybe this speaks to you for your husbands, we just want you to like us.
Oh, for sure.
We just want you to think we're amazing.
Yes.
We just want you, we don't want to displease you. We don't like it when you're unhappy.
Well, and without being patronizing, I remember somewhere along the way someone said, put a picture of your husband as a little boy on the refrigerator to remind you that the little boy in him just wants to be seen, known, loved, accepted, praised. Just think about your son when he's 4, 5, 6. Mommy, look at me, look at me, look at me. And the little boy in our husbands, that's what they want. They're not going to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, but they're thinking, what do you think? What do you mean? And so that's what they want. And there's that rough exterior, and there's that that confidence and that security that you had, and even maybe in the beginning that arrogant that gave off this air that I don't need you to like me. I don't need you. I like myself enough, and it was really a facade needing to be liked more. And so just to encourage you, if you're in a young marriage and there's a quality that your spouse has that you don't like, then ask the Lord, what's the insecurity underneath it, and what can you do to love them in that? Speak to that specifically to help heal that insecurity and bless your marriage.
Yeah. So what about spending time together? How do we do that? What would you recommend to couples as they try to hang out together? Maybe in different seasons of life. We have all kinds of ages of parents here. So what are some things that have worked? What are the things you've seen work?
For us, it's all looked different through all the different seasons with all the different kids going in 100 different directions. I think that was probably one of the biggest things that we fought for on a daily basis. And so some super, super practical things we did was we pretty much in the very beginning, after that first year of marriage, we kind of made a rule that we were going to go to bed together, that we were going to make that happen. In that first year of marriage, Don had a habit from being a bachelor where he would be in his recliner and he would, watch TV, and he'd fall asleep in his recliner, and then he'd come get in bed. And so the very beginning, my dad did that too. And I'm like, I don't want a marriage like my parents. And so I was like, no, you're going to come to bed with me every night. And so now fast forward to, through all the years, and we've been great at that. Don gets in bed when he wants to get in bed because he gets up early and just sits in bed and reads until I get in there. And I usually get my second wind by about 9 o'clock once all the little kids are in bed.
Might
and all
be 3 or 4 hours, but I'm in there just waiting. No.
And so that's one. So that's one practical everyday thing. Yeah. But then the other thing that I want to say is to make time to get together. Like in our early years, we would go on our little retreat over Thanksgiving. That's around our anniversary. We'd go stay in an Airbnb. Well, it wasn't an Airbnb. What was it back then? What were
bed and breakfast.
A bed and breakfast.
Yeah,
they were so cheesy. Oh my goodness! I remember we finally said, let's not ever do that again. But we would go do that and get away for 3 or 4 years, and then
3 or 4 years,
3 or 4 days. But I was thinking,
it seemed like 3 or 4 days.
I was thinking, but at the 5-year mark, we did something big. At the 10-year mark, we went to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I was going.
And I would say overall, I think going to bed is great. It's going to bed together might have saved our marriage in so many ways. I mean, it was...
Well, it's a connection point that we were very specific about, that we hadn't connected all day long.
7 kids and all the things going on, and really, maybe some distance coming in. But we, going to bed together, you kind of have to face each other. And we weren't, like I said, we weren't like angry with each other or whatever, but we had to do something. I mean, we had to connect, and because just kind of, it's like, putting us in a place that was happening. And the other thing was,
going back together. Were you going to still talk about going to bed together? Because I want to add one more thing to that.
Sure, go ahead.
I think that was what made us be able to parent so well. Because we would get in bed together and I would download all the things that were happening with all the kids, and so that you were on the same page and you knew what was going on, and so you were fully active in the kids' lives, even if you weren't with them all day long, so that the next day you could say, hey, Mom said you got a 100 on your spelling test. Tell me about that. Yeah. And so you were able to connect with the kids because I was the liaison with you, sharing what happened throughout the day. So I think that it's very valuable. And it was a God thing that we did it and that we were obedient with it.
Well, okay. And I think the other thing is that parents, we talk a lot about date nights, and I think a lot of couples do date nights well, but man, there's so much kid protection in the society today. It's like, we can't leave our kids because of this, that, or the other, and it's like, no. Leave your kids, get away, find somebody, they're going to live. They're going to be okay. Even, these, the infants and, keeping them, safe until they're 2, it's just like, no. I mean, we literally just, we now having a lot of kids made a difference in that, but it's like kids just had to go with us. different places, and many times we went to that bed and breakfast with a baby with us.
Oh yeah, there was a nursing infant for the first 10 years for sure.
But we got away and we did something. We got a date night. We did something,
invested in our
and I think
marriage.
that was really big.
Yeah.
And I think getting away is just, whether it be even, and now today there's so many ways to get away just for a little bit, many different options.
And I'm even thinking, even scaling it back down to, for sure, the date night getaway, an all day Saturday, something like that. But even going back to the going to bed together, some other super practical things is holding hands in the car. Just when you're in the, or if you walk by each other, then just touch each other, tap it, just pat each other or whatever that is, or drop a kiss or flash each other. I mean, something, something to connect, if you will. I mean, we've never been really big about sending texts or emojis or calling during the day. We've never been, but if that's a good connection point for you, then do that.
And again, every marriage is different. Learning the language of your spouse and then trying to speak into that language is going to really help. And so, as we wrap up our podcast today, do you have anything else any topics you want to go into? I want to just I was going to kind of wrap it up with a wrap up. But do you want to cover anything else before we do that?
No, the only thing I think I want to say is that the marriage relationship is kind of its own entity. It's its own thing. It's kind of a stand apart thing in your family, in your household, in your culture, and it needs to be fed. And so I just encourage you to get together with your spouse and say, okay, what are we doing to feed our marriage? I mean, it takes time, it takes energy. Obviously it takes encouragement. It takes physical touch. And so there's lots of different ways to feed your marriage. And so I just encourage you, what are you doing? What are you doing to feed it?
Yeah. And I'd love to wrap up with this. A lot of times when we tell people that our marriage has not always been the best. It's a tough relationship. Sometimes they look at us and go, even people that have known us for a while will look at us and go, really? And the reason, there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that we get along in public. We don't badmouth each other, and I think that's another great thing to do in marriage is you don't ever talk bad about your spouse to other people. There's definitely people that I confide with that I say, I'm struggling with this with Suzanne or whatever, but those are my dear friends that might hear something about that. But overall, we would never, I would never make fun of Suzanne in public. That we learned that at a young age, and that's something to really. But I hope that you can get out of this that, hey, the best marriages are two different people that are imperfect, and they can have some difficulties, but I hope no matter where you are with your marriage, you want to say, man, let's go fight for the marriage. Let's go fight to make it excellent. Don't settle. That's one of the things that we faced probably about 10 years ago is that, as we saw the kids getting older, it's like Suzanne said, are we going to settle for this?
Yeah. Or
are we going to pursue it in a new and different way? And we did, and God helped us a lot with it. And so today, and over that time, at year 1 of pursuing it, it was like, wow, is this going to work? Is this going to be any better? Yeah. But at year 10 or so, we're just random throwing, kind of rounding, if you will. But it is. And so it's worth the cost. It's worth the breakthrough. So it's worth the effort. And so if that's where you are, and the best way you can do it is to first be discipled and to really focus on you. And then as you get healthy, then you can bring your healthiest self to the marriage. Mm-hmm. And that's when God has breakthroughs for you.
For sure.
So, yeah. Hopefully this is Happy Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. Go invest in your marriage.
Yeah, have a great date.
Take your person on a date.
Go ask them questions and just
and listen.
And listen, be interested in them.
And revel in how amazing they are. And just say, oh, you're the most incredible person in the whole world. I can't believe I get to be married to you.
Yes. And as always, parents, go be crazy. Go be crazy in your marriage.
Yeah, that's fun. Do that.
crazycoolfamily.com. Thanks for listening to the Crazy Cool Family podcast. We hope this episode inspired and challenged you to invest in your family. We want every family in the world to know about God's vision for their family. To help get the word out, consider taking a minute and giving our podcast a 5-star review and share why you love listening. Or share our podcast on social media with your friends and family. We believe that family is God's idea, so help us spread His vision for family by telling others about our podcast today.